One, two, three. Welcome to Scéalta. My name is Joe Austin. And if you're only joining us now, let me explain to you what Scéalta is. The object of Scéalta is to entertain and inform you, the listener. Scéalta is a joint product, or production, I should say, by Fáilte Fierce to Hear and Féileann Phobal. Our guest today, and I have to say I'm absolutely delighted to get, not my hands on him, but certainly my eyes on him, is the Mayor of Belfast, Danny Baker. I'm not going to call you Mr. Mayor through the whole interview. So, Mr. Mayor, welcome to Scéalta. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's great seeing you, Joe. Yeah, doing good. Difficult times, but yeah, playing on.
I have to say, you know, I know you quite well, and I know you from you were a baby, actually. But one of the things that it strikes people when they first see you is how young you look. Because in my day, mayors, and I hope none of the previous mayors take any offence, but mayors looked like they were older. So, as your young good looks, is it an advantage or disadvantage?
It's all in the smell, Joe. Yeah, no, it's a good advantage, and I suppose it take all my youthful looks from my mother. She was always a very youthful looking woman. So I don't want to give away my age, but I'm a lot older than what people think. So
So, for those who perhaps wouldn't be in contact with you on a regular basis, or in contact with any of the previous mayors, how do you become a mayor? How do you get to where you are now?
Well, I suppose my situation was very different. It was the first time in 100 years that the mayor split the term. We all know the great work that John Finucane had done when he was selected to be the mayor, and then going to get himself elected as MP in North Belfast. So that paved the way for the party to select somebody else. And I don't think anybody really thought about the protocol of it. And then I got the wee knock on the door on a Saturday to have a conversation. So that's how it happened for me very quickly. But again, a massive privilege to have that opportunity. But I suppose you have to be a councillor first and foremost, and that's where my journey began. And like more back in, well, I suppose my whole life I've been an activist, but as far as putting my head above the parapet, it all began in January 2018. So that's where it began.
Had you any reservations?
Taking on the mayor?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It was definitely another step up on what you're doing. It's every day is a learning day to me. It's a school day. I'm still even just coming to terms with council. Every day you learn something in council, especially the all coming in there. You don't necessarily see what goes on, so you're learning. So when I was asked to be the mayor, I knew how much of a level jump it was, because I had the privilege of watching the likes of Dergy Hargy and of course John Finucane through his first 6 months, and the tremendous hard work that they have to put in, because it takes over your life. It really does. But what I will say was, when I did say yes and all the excitement around it, the nice little PR of it, the reality didn't hit home until probably after the Christmas period, when you were put in front of microphones and having to get, you can do it. And that's how I always say to young people, there's nothing that you can't achieve. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
I know that most mayors, under normal circumstances, have a kind of a theme to their year in office, and you make the point of that you were kind of thrown in midway through that reign of office. So were you able to adapt your own themes, and if you were, what were they?
Well, as I say, when I was asked to take it on, it was a huge privilege. Over the Christmas period, I was able to really sit down and really reflect on what I wanted to do. And I suppose for me, I'm a youth advocate. One of the main reasons I took on being a councillor, it really put my head above that parapet, was that I felt that the young people in Lagmore and Colin were being left behind. It was a time of change, and when the opportunity came to become a councillor, that was one of the reasons I took that. Same as the mayor, was taking on that position to really be that voice for young people, especially around mental health and the different types of mental health that's out there and the understanding of it. I really wanted to use the time to push really a spotlight on the trauma of our past, especially for young people in different, my generation and younger. A lot of people don't really reflect on the PTSD that is probably through our communities and our young people from our conflict, and that was something I really wanted to push and help with. But Obviously, COVID-19, things have quickly changed, and that's another issue we're going to have to deal with on the back of this, and how young people in the world that they live in, how we can develop them and build that resilience.
We come from a society that's cynical, rightly or wrongly, it's cynical. And, you know, a lot of people would view those involved in politics as in it for what they can get. You hear the expression occasionally, and some radio presenters would promote that idea, in it for what you can get. You hear it all the time. You became a mayor and you had a job which fed your family. And I know you can't go into details. How long did you keep your job for when you became mayor?
1 day. Yeah. So a big part of my life and my trade is now probably gone. So in the 1st of June when I'm at the mayor, technically I'm only a councillor and not even employed. But listen, that was a sacrifice that I was willing to take. Totally understand the dynamics of a situation that we live in. The job that I did took me into all parts of Belfast, and it's just not practical anymore. And that's fair enough. And I knew that was going to happen, but it was well worth the sacrifice.
You mentioned that you're a champion of youth in all its dimensions, and I have to say that I've been in circles with you when you've argued against the odds, the defence of young people, when perhaps something that has happened and people's emotions are risen and they're kind of blaming all young people. How difficult is that? You know, sometimes there are circumstances where wrong is just simply wrong. But how difficult is it to argue sometimes the unpopular argument?
Well, I suppose in the world of social media where we live now, you know, we all make mistakes. I'm still making a mistake as an adult, and you know, doesn't all necessarily be broadcasted around social media. I find our young people are under a lot of spotlight, and when something goes wrong, you just have to see the hits that will get on social media if someone puts something up. It's absolutely unfair on them because it always tends to be the minority. What was happening, and if I go back to probably 2017, 2018, getting into the Colin area, was that one brush was being tarred over all of our young people. And when you went to speak to the ones that were hard to reach, you know, the ones that aren't in the youth centres, the ones who are maybe struggling in school or whatever family problems, they could be standing on the street corner having a carry out or stealing someone's bin and burning it. It is wrong what they were doing. But when you went in and spoke to them, you could tell that they didn't feel part of the community, that they didn't feel like they had a purpose. And us as leaders, we have to give them a purpose and show them that they are part of the community. And I have always said this, one of the biggest successes that I've had was actually through Scéalta. When Scéalta gave me the community allocation of the dance tickets the very first time, you know, I was probably one of the first people who went right into the heart of the hardest to reach kids and the Colin and other parts as well. That for me, that really helped build relationships and bridges. And then I've seen a massive improvement right through the Colin, and then the projects we've done from that has been huge. But the stepping stone very much for me came from Scéalta.
The night that you became mayor, that you took on this role, you talked very much about being a mayor for the city, being a mayor and providing leadership for the city. And that has taken you into all arts and parts of the city. What response, what reception have you received?
Well,
and were there any surprises?
To be honest, Joe, no real surprises for me. As I say, my other job always brought me into every part of the city, and they wouldn't have known who I was. And we're all the same. I've always said this. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on or wall. We're all the same people, all trying to do the best for our families. So I wasn't surprised when I seen the community groups here doing amazing work. And you know, as a councillor, sometimes you're only seeing the negatives. You know, you get loads of complaints, or you're always dealing with that side of it. When I come in and you have that office of the mayor, you're going out to see the celebration of all that's going on right across this city. And there's so many different community groups from all backgrounds and all diversity. It is vibrant, it's energetic, and you know what? They are knocking their plums in, day out, for nothing more than for the betterment of the city. And it was an absolute pleasure, and I could feel myself as a person in the first couple of weeks, months, I was really growing as a person myself, because I was really inspired by what I was seeing, and seeing until you're in that season, it's really weird. I've tried to describe this a couple of times about the chain. The chain is almost like a magnet of people, like the interactions you're having. You would never get these opportunities, and it was just an absolute privilege. It's hard to describe. You just have to sort of see it, and you've seen it over the time through yourself, the influence that chain has. And when you're in that role, you really appreciate it. Like it's fantastic.
I think one of the things that the chain does do, and one of the nice things about the office, is that it shows you a holistic city. It shows you that this is one Belfast, and this is the way that it should be. But I want to move you on, and I know we haven't got tremendous amount of time. For those who have just joined us, you're listening to Danny Baker, who is called the Mayor of Belfast, because that's what he is. And my name is Joe Austin. This is Scéalta. The night that the pandemic was officially notified, and when people were told you're in lockdown, my heart beat, because I thought I wouldn't get any more cream buns. I would be confined to the house. You, as the mayor of the city, was there like 1,000 things, maybe more? What do we need to do? How do you do it? What committee do we set up? Was all of that? I mean, like, I have to say, to be a mayor of a major city in the middle of a pandemic, wow, what a task.
Well, Joe, to be face a lockdown, if I go back to, it was probably, just thinking back in my head, maybe the 9th or 10th of March. It was a Monday night, and I'd called a special council meeting, and it was actually for Flybe. I don't know if you remember. It's got lost on all of this. Was Flybe going under in the city airport, and the help that we were trying to give to staff and that. So that was the Monday night. At that point, things were moving very fluidly, very fast. And at that meeting, it was about 5 to 5. I remember making contact with PHA, trying to get the chief medical officer. Obviously, it wasn't possible at that short notice. That I was really concerned about St. Patrick's Day. So that was a week ahead of us. And I felt that it was an opportunity for us as a council, while we were meeting, to put it on the agenda and then to discuss what we could possibly do. And that weren't cancelling the whole event. So 5 to 5, I remember the nervousness of it, because it would have been even unprecedented at that time. As a mayor, you have the remit to do this. But again, it wasn't, it was very short notice for all parties and all that. And I got all that for staff. So speaking to Emmons, it was still against medical advice to cancel St. Patrick's Day. However, they understood the position that we were in. And for me and my gut, I felt that night was the right time to do it, because Dublin had just made that announcement, and I think Cork. And it just felt like the South was moving in the right direction, where there was a wee bit of dilling going on across the water. That was the Monday night, where on the Tuesday you had Cheltenham happening. You had Liverpool playing in a Champions League match. Massive Liverpool fan, but that match had never went ahead, in my opinion. Next to Cheltenham. So we had all that there, and the media pressure around that. So 5 to 5, I remember just going for it and very nervous. I think it was the only time I've been nervous actually in the chamber, if I'm being really honest, apart from the very first time I walked through the doors. We've done the meeting, and to be fair to all members, even though ones that had reservations going against medical advice, we done it collectively, and we took that brave decision. And from the decisions, we've seen the bravery of our businesses, our bars and our restaurants. And one of my favourite bar is the PD. I think the PD has led from example right across from community response, but also taking that decision. And in the city centre, a lot of businesses would be relying on days like St. Patrick's Day to pay a lot of wages and to keep the lights on for most of the year. So them big decisions have saved lives, in my opinion. And we were doing that well before the big shoot from Downing Street on the Monday, or even before Leo even came out. So to me, we were well ahead of it.
I remember that very well. And I remember a section of the media who had spent the previous perhaps 10 years criticising St. Patrick's Day, mounting this campaign as to why Belfast, how dare you? Why should you cancel St. Patrick's Day? Now, the proof of the pudding is always in the eating. So followed suit very quickly. Other councils and other events and other St. Patrick's Day planned events. And of course, from that, it's been proven central. A key component in fighting this virus has been the cancellation of big events. So was there a kind of, I got it right. Was it one of those moments?
I got you. I knew we were right in what we were doing. It felt like before you went into that meeting, you were just going to yourself, why does it have to be me to do this? But, you know, leaders lead you, and I felt it was the right time to do it, and we went for it. And that then led into the Friday. And again, this was before lockdowns, and we were shutting down our buildings and protecting staff. There were big decisions being made by Belfast City Council ahead of the lockdown, and they were the right decisions. And so what if it had been a wee couple of days early? For me, that is what is helping, at least helping keep saving lives. And this is where I don't want complacency coming in from people. It was our quick action that has probably stopped there being any part of ground zero. And it wasn't just St. Patrick's Day. You have to give a lot of credit to Easter. Easter's a big day in the Republican calendar, and for everyone across this island. And you know, they were big decisions as well, taken early to make sure that didn't happen. And then also, I have to give a lot of credit to the Orange Order coming out about the 12th of July as well. They completely took that off the table, which has helped.
You used a phrase there that I last heard you use, and you may remember this. I know you've got 1,000 events every day, all day, every day, or you had under normal circumstances. I brought a delegation of children from the Schenkel Road down to meet you, and they were all very young, very boisterous. You'd given them a finger buffet in the parlour, and they were fighting over crisps and sausages and all of that. But you said in your introduction to them, leaders lead. And Belfast is a city of leaders. I don't know if you remember that. But what a prediction. Because what's happening in Belfast at the moment, right across the board, must make you very proud to be the mayor of Belfast.
Oh, huge. It's amazing what has happened. As I said, like a lot of them businesses and bars and small businesses took them decisions before they even knew about job security or what schemes would have been coming from the great work that's being done. If I'm being honest, with Dergy Hargey and Conor Murphy has done very quickly with what they've put together with grants. They were doing that before they even knew. And to me, that's leaders, and that's right across our whole community, right across Belfast. And it's a pleasure to be, particularly from West Belfast, if I'm being a wee bit parochial. It is the greatest part of
Correct, you're from Scéalta town.
That's true.
Which is maybe the famous part of the city. I have to say that in case your father's watching this interview. For many people who've just joined us, you know, the mayor in his car in a red shirt isn't really what they would have expected. An interview with the mayor, they may have expected a robe, a chain, and a fancy office. Just explain why you're hiding in your car.
Well, hiding in the car because it's the only peace and quiet I get these days when I'm trying to do phone calls away from the kids or going stir crazy. I suppose for me, I haven't been in City Hall. I shut that down. That was another decision I made. I didn't want to put any of the staff in any sort of risk. So I shut the parlour down many weeks ago. Only a very few occasions that I've went and lifted the chain for just one or two videos that I've done as a message. But other than that, I shut it down, and I've been very much concentrating on the community response. As a councillor, you would see me more in my own community, but also I'm doing work right across the city and coordinating. But for me, being that councillor and being in my community and making sure the community response is running is very important.
There is, as you say, there is an army of people, and I know you don't want to be kind of selecting any particular group of people, but there's an army of people out there, from those who are putting together food parcels, essentially, those who are frontline workers, be they in the hospitals or in wherever they may be found, in the shopping centres or wherever. Do you have a message to them from the city of Belfast and from the citizens as the first citizen?
Oh, absolutely, Joe. Like, without them, I don't know where we would be. But bottom line, in the bottom of my heart, they have been absolutely, truly heroes. And that's from our staff in the NHS, right through to the young people who are on the checkouts. And I know I've talked with young people, but if you go to any supermarket right now, you look who's at the front line of it. It is our young people. So absolutely, 100%. Can't praise them enough. And of course, the community aspects. As I say, as a mayor, you got to see all the great work of the communities right across Belfast. But I think everybody's seeing it right now. Who is the ones out there really protecting the most vulnerable? It's ordinary men and women who are out there putting themselves at risk to make sure the most vulnerable are looked after. And is a testament that the great leadership that goes on right throughout this city, and it's very much within the community sector. We're community led, and it's absolutely amazing. And the work that continues to go on, they have my full support. I actually just wish I could do even more for them, because they are the true leaders. And coming out the other side of this, I think we all need to have a massive conversation about how we do things differently, everything differently. There is no such thing as the new normal or normal. We need to do everything differently.
Well, many communities have registered that pride and that thanks by coming out and clapping, by doing a 1 minute silence. Some people have been involved in sponsorship, although it's very limited what you can do. Maybe the councillors, and you as a leading councillor, maybe when we come out the other side of this, because we will, whatever else is going on, we'll come out the other side of this. Maybe we need to have a day dedicated to this period, and to those, as you say, who rushed to our defence, who went to the defence of their fellow citizens. I don't know what you could call it, whether you call it a Special Citizens Day or a Frontline Day or whatever. Maybe it's something that you could look at whenever things are back to whatever passes for normality.
Well, yes, Joe, but what I would say is what they need is fair pay. And what we need is no more zero-hour contracts. That would be the best way for us to reward the people on the front line rather than having days. Yes, market, but we need to be holding businesses to account who aren't. I look at it when you took it like a food rating. You see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a business, right? Why don't we have a rating for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on how they treat their staff? No more zero-hour contracts. Fair days pay for fair days work, where people can put food on the table. Now, they don't need food banks. We should need food banks in our society. This is a response to COVID, but unfortunately, we have too many food banks even before that, and that needs to end. We're working poor. It needs to stop. It just needs to stop now.
I interviewed a woman a wee while back who would be involved in administrating one of the food banks in the west of the city. And I just explained to her, she's a relatively young woman, certainly younger than me. I actually believed that food banks were something out of a Charles Dickens novel. That food banks, I didn't believe they had gone, but that food banks would never return, and here we have it. People depend on a daily or a weekly basis on food banks. And as you say, you make the point, well before the pandemic. And maybe some of those, including Boris, who was saved, we're told, by the health service. Maybe and you again the point, maybe the way that he repays is to be decent, to be a decent employer to those who are in it. Plans for the future. Your plans for the future. Not mine.
That's a real hard one. At this point, it's about getting through COVID-19, Joe. I'm hoping that my family come through the other side of this, and the people I love, without losing anyone, if I'm being brutally honest. That's as far as my plans are. As I said, on June 1st, I am technically just back to being a councillor, so I don't know where my working career will go even after that, but I'm not even worrying about it. My whole focus now is dealing with COVID-19, and that'll be it till it's over.
Have you seen within your own community, within those who, as you say, who you're elected by? I mean, is there a change in attitude? Is there a kind of a defiant spirit? Is there an increased community spirit? How do you think ordinary people, and I don't like using that word, but you know what I mean? How are people kind of shouldering? Because it's hard to be in lockdown, especially for young people, and especially people who can't get out and people whose exams have been messed about. How do you think that they're resisting all of this?
I suppose for me, I've really got my eyes open for Lagmore Mount Eagles. Anyone who doesn't know it, it's an area that was very young in the Colin. So the build started about 25, 30 years ago, and it's still building now, still getting bigger. But it's people coming from all parts of the Colin and further afield to live in Lagmore. So we wouldn't have that necessarily historic community foundation. Now, like, I'm from Twinbrook. Twinbrook has been through the lot. And, that community spirit is always there. Where I found in Lagmore, people maybe did not know each other as much, even though it was a good community. I can see now that connection starting to build within that whole working together. Our spar up in Mount Eagles, and that's another one of the businesses you have to praise right from the very beginning. We're doing social distancing, protecting people going in, making it feel safe to shop. Way before supermarkets were doing it, way before anybody else. Somebody who was willing to put his business on the line as well, restricting who would come in before they were even being told to do it. That to me just showed everything that was great about this community. And you see it in the Thursday night when they're out clapping. Everyone's out clapping. Even when you're out on your walk, people are crossing roads to make sure they're not getting too close. Everyone's playing their part up here in Lagmore, and it's fantastic to see. And I know, me being me, I want to build on that when the other side of this here. We will keep building together and building the community sector within Lagmore.
One of the drawbacks of being a notoriety like yourself, being the mayor of our great city, is that people see you on television, or they see you at an event, and they assume that's you. They assume that, this guy does this and that's it. But as you said earlier on, when you take all that away and you take all of the chains of office and all of that, you're someone's son, you're someone's husband and father. And I know that you had a fairly heavy year. Your mother passed away. Your father, who's a lifelong friend of mine, was sick a number of occasions, and it was quite serious. Did you ever, because you are a young man, did you ever in the middle of all of that say, I'm not doing this. I have enough on my plate. I don't need to be doing any of it. Did you ever get one of those moments that you can talk about?
No, I suppose for me, Joe, it actually helps me being busy. If I'm being honest, 2019 was a year that, I can't even think of the word for it. My mum was sick that whole year and we lost her. It was just a year that was terrible, but it was being that councillor that was my saving grace. Being busy, being active, it helps me. Probably sometimes at the detriment to my family, that I would go and do things, off the whim of a hat. If someone needs help, I will drop everything and go and do it. That sort of was what helps me get through it. As you said, my father has been well later. I haven't seen him since the start of it. Talked to him on the phone, but that's about as far. I haven't went down to see him because I'm afraid, because you're meeting people you just don't know either, because you're not being tested. Yeah. I even taking precautions. It's difficult. 2019 for our whole family, and the start of 2020, it's been difficult. But I find that the role of a councillor really helps, because you're 24/7, and for me, that's great. That's just good for me. And I've never had a moment where I've said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think sometimes, listen, it's hard. You're sitting there, and sometimes I'm going stir crazy because I don't feel I'm busy enough at the minute. So I can be at the opposite scale of it, but it's been a great help for me.
I suppose your father is a lifelong reign or term in politics. Does he still give you the advice that he keeps giving me every time he meets me? Is he still into that?
No, he's still into telling me that he has to write a letter to get to sit down with me. So he's at that stage where he's telling me. But no, yes, listen, always been that advice.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's always been that advice, and the same as my mum always used to give as well. Just do your best and be what you can be, and that's what I've always tried to do.
I want to direct the very last question to you, a subject very close to your heart, and that's young people. And some young people will watch this broadcast, and some young people will be the subject of a whole barrage by sections of the media that talk about politicians in a very derogatory way. Do you have a message? Would you encourage young people to become involved in politics? Not party politics, but politics in its broadest sense.
Well, absolutely, and I've made this point a couple of times, especially around the environmental meetings that I took part in. And I'd say to the young people, you do not let the government be gatekeepers to participation. I always firm believer that young people should be voting at 16, but when they get the opportunity to vote, they should take it, and for whoever they feel closest affiliated, because you will never connect with one full party. Nobody will. Let's be honest, we'll have grapes within ourselves about certain directions. We had a massive decision only a few years back around abortion, as you know, and even how much that happened within the party. But that's what democracy is, and that's what I tell young people. Pick whatever's as close to your heart and try and run with it, because it's important. Because all these decisions that are being made, whether it's Brexit or even how we prepare for COVID-19, or how we weren't prepared for COVID-19 or with the next pandemic or one after, it is their futures. It's not mine. I mean, it's their decisions that are being made today will determine their futures and their children's futures, and they have to have a say in it, and they have to call out what's wrong. And don't go down this whole narrative of, and I hate it here, and it really gets under my skin sometimes that you hear people talking about green and orange here. I firmly don't believe in green and orange politics. I don't think green and orange politics have been around for a long time, and it's a personal opinion of mine. I think there's a class within politics in this island, and that's what we need to strip out. We need to be putting people first. And when we started questioning that, it shouldn't be green and orange. And the ones that call that out are the ones that are looking to protect the status quo. And the status quo doesn't work for me.
And those very poignant words, and I agree with everything you just said, but on those very poignant words, thank you for being my guest. I know you're quite busy, so that's Scéalta finished. So from Danny Baker and from Joe Austin, thank you and enjoy the programme.
Thanks, Joe. Slán.
Amor.